Hello, and my name is Stephen Kabiru, and today I want us to do injector nozzle testing, and I wish to welcome you to my presentation. So with me I have several equipment. I have a jerry can of diesel, I have a set of wrenches, I have my 17mm open-ended wrench and my 19mm open-ended wrench, a flat screwdriver, the test samples. I have one new nozzle for doing the control test and the faulty nozzle for the purpose of testing. I have a jerry can of diesel and I have my testing equipment. So if you notice, my testing equipment has a hand pump and a gauge that's calibrated to two scales. One is in kilogram per centimeter squared and the other one that is in red is in pounds per square inch. I will start off by filling diesel to my equipment, and I will open this can here and pour in my diesel and making sure that any sediments are left down below, although I have a filter. Notice that my container has a filter to protect the injector nozzles from getting jammed. So once that's done, then I need to bleed out my equipment by opening the bleed screw down here, just to let off the diesel drip a bit. And then once that's done, you can tighten it back. And then I need to fit the injector nozzle that I want to test. I open the unions using my 17mm wrench. And I fit my control. So my control is here to show us the correct equipment or the correct parameters that we expect to see from the injector nozzle. So we shall be doing 4 tests, and among them, the first one is the correct pressure setting. The second one is nozzle seat tightness. The third one being backlift between needle and nozzle, and the last one is atomization spray pattern. So before you tighten your nozzle, you require to bleed the air between the injector lines. And after a few pumps, you can see diesel leaking out, and you know that you have squeezed out the air. And then you tighten the injector nozzle. Make sure that the nozzle points away from you, as it's going to introduce a mist that can get into your eyes. So the first test involves raising the pressure by hand, observing the point at which the injector nozzle opens. So observe the gauge and see at what point the injector starts to open. After a few pumps, you can see the gauge starts to rise up, and observe at what point the nozzle opens. And you can see at about 2,500 or 2,200, my injector nozzle opens. So you expect to check that value with what the manufacturer recommends. So the second test involves the nozzle seat tightness, and at this point we are going to charge the injector nozzle with diesel and high pressure and knock that pressure at that point and observe to see if there are any droplets coming off the tip of the nozzle. So for this case, I'd like to tilt my nozzle a bit so that it can point downwards. And again, I'm going to charge the pressure to a pressure that is slightly below what we observed where the nozzle opened. So I will take my nozzle to about 2000 psi and lock in that pressure. And then, with my nozzle tip being very clean, I use a blotting paper to see if I can get a droplet at the tip of the nozzle. So after about 10 seconds, there should be no drop coming off from the nozzle. Again, remember, you're doing a control with the correct nozzle, and you're going to compare this with a faulty nozzle. The third test involves backlift between the needle and the nozzle. For this test, I open my valve again and charge pressure slowly to the pressure just below where the nozzle opened, and observe how fast the needle drops. If my needle drops up to 1800 in less than 10 seconds, that tells you that, your nozzle is faulty. And I can approximate after about 10 seconds, my needle has not yet dropped to 0. And the last test observes the atomization pattern. So for a good spray pattern, you expect to get equal mist or equal patterns emitting from the nozzle, respective to the number of holes you have on your nozzle. So kindly observe the control, how it does it. You can see the 4 sprays that are even and at equal angles, and their volume is also even. So now with having done the control, let us test it with a faulty nozzle and see what happens. So I release my union and I try to stop the diesel from leaking down to observe the environment. And I fit a faulty nozzle. Before I tighten it again, remember to bleed it out a bit. Once the air is released, you lock it tight. And again, we start the first test to see the correct pressure setting, to see at what point our injector nozzle opens. So we open slowly, observing at what point our injector nozzle opens. And you can see my injector nozzle is actually squirting out liquid diesel, which is a first sign of a faulty nozzle. You can see the diesel squirting out from the tip. The second test involves nozzle seat tightness, and here again we raise that pressure to just below where the injector nozzle opens, and we lock in that pressure. And observe to see if you can get any droplets coming off the tip of the nozzle. I can already see diesel leaking from the tip of the nozzle. As you can see, my blotting paper is already wet, showing you that your nozzle is leaking. So that tells you that your nozzle requires servicing, and specifically for the space between the seat of the nozzle and the needle. The third test is testing back leak between the needle and the nozzle. Again, we open the valve quickly. It's a bit tight. We raise the pressure again slowly to just below where it opens and see how fast the needle comes down. If I was to time that, you can see the needle is falling quickly from where it's opening, telling you that you already have excess back leak. And the last test tests the atomization and spray pattern. So I would like you to notice that we have 2 different nozzles. This one is a hole type, and it produces a different pattern as to this one that I have here, which is a Pinto type. So observe the spray pattern on the Pinto type nozzle and see the kind of pattern that you're getting. Now this tells you that your nozzle requires servicing, and to service the nozzle, you require to take it apart, remove the components, clean out the components, and then you test the nozzle again to confirm that the nozzle performs according to the parameters given by the manufacturer. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.